books that are read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is helping smart, spiritual women create powerful, passionate partnerships. No other than Miss Violet Lange.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Violet. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes. So I have gone on a path myself to go from a lot of childhood trauma and unhealthy relationships, trying to date and not being able to get into a partnership or even to a second or third date. And now I'm married to the man of my dreams, and we have two children. And I'm passionate about helping other women to reclaim their love life and their sovereignty in dating and have a lot more fun along the way as well.
Have fun for sure, Miss Violet Lang. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about transforming trauma into healthy love. How do you distinguish relationship patterns rooted in trauma from genuinely healthy connections?
That's a great question. Thank you, Daniel. A lot of times, trauma based patterns will show up in our either hiding and withdrawing or overextending, overfunctioning. So, in any relationship, when you see an imbalance of one partner doing more or one partner doing less, that's a good sign. When you see a lot of communication that is rooted in secrecy or not being transparent or authentic, patterns like people pleasing, hyper or hyposexuality, and also when there's a pattern you might find where you feel like you're dating the same type of person, even though their name is different or they look different, they have a similar pattern, or you have a type. And a lot of times that's based on our early experiences with our caregivers, and we're trying to heal those experiences by dating someone who has characteristics that are similar to people in our life that we have unprocessed trauma with.
Miss Violet, let's talk about your latest episode of your podcast. Can sex keep getting better in a long term relationship?
Yes, it can. You don't have to listen to the episode to find that out. Uh, a lot of a lot of times people think that once you start being serious with someone, like living together or getting married, that the sex kind of goes out the window, or it becomes just very monotonous or obligatory. And I was in a marriage that ended in my late 20s. And in those 5 years, we probably only had sex like 10 times. And it was very unhealthy from my perspective and unfulfilling. And so I was on a quest to help create a partnership with my now husband where our sex life just keeps getting better. And frequently we'll be like, wow, that was the best sex we've ever had, even though we're having almost 10 years of knowing each other now.
Yes, will you be my guest on Sex 101? Am I on other podcast? So let's talk about
Yeah.
sex and relationships. And thank you for sharing that knowledge to us, Miss Violet. Why must healing start with self compassion before healthy partnership becomes possible?
That's a great question as well. If we don't have a strong connection to ourselves, it's nearly impossible to have a strong connection to someone else. However, in order to have a strong connection with ourselves, oftentimes we do need to have strong connections with others. So it's a bit of the chicken and the egg, a paradox, if you might say it that way. I like to think of it as the more energy that we invest into our own healing and our own authenticity and reclaiming these inner child pieces of ourselves that are trapped in past trauma, then the more we have to offer a partner and the more that we're showing up available, the more we're going to not only attract people who are available, but the more that we will be able to receive. If we're showing up really guarded, even if a friend, a family member, a colleague, a romantic date tries to fill our cup with attention and affection and connection, nothing will soak in. So us spending the time and energy on ourselves in the beginning helps increase our capacity to receive. And then that can grow over time as we continue to take care of ourselves and as we continue to spend time with people who are emotionally attuned and help us to regulate.
Again, Miss Violet, very well said, beautifully articulated. What makes people unconsciously recreate toxic dynamics they experience in childhood?
I mean, that's a great question with a lot of different answers. I feel that some of it is familiarity. Our nervous system gets wired when we're young for certain experiences because our brains go through this pruning process. Until we're the age of about 3, our brain is making all of these neural connections, but it's not possible for us to be in the world with all of these neural connections and be safe and focused and achieve the things we're meant to achieve as we grow into adulthood. So our brain starts taking away the neural connections that it doesn't deem as important. But if you're in a situation where you are in fight or flight or freeze while you're growing up because of unhealthy patterns in your family home or just things get passed down from your lineage, your brain is going to flag those as really important because they feel intense. So we don't necessarily keep all the things in our nervous system that are in quotations good. We just keep whatever feels intense and remarkable because we're trying to protect ourselves. That's the job of our brain and our nervous system, is to keep us out of danger. But if you flagged all of these fight, flight, or freeze things as important, then you're going to actually be looking for those or subconsciously trying to recreate those out of familiarity and also out of just the brain's pattern recognition. We're more likely to look for patterns we've already experienced. I'm sure you've heard about this study where you look for a certain color of car, you just get a car of a certain make and model, and all of a sudden you see it out in the real world. So our brain is always trying to create this feedback loop between our external environment and the preconditioning inside. And that's why it takes a certain amount of effort and skill and coaching or insight, through great books like what you talk about in your podcast, to break out of those patterns and create a new perspective. So I think the first reason is familiarity. I think the second reason is just a lack of self-awareness. We don't always get taught how to be aware of our feelings and our thoughts and what's ours versus what someone else's. And I think the third reason is because there is a bit of a glamorization of unhealthy relationships. And so when that happens, we think, well, I can't help who I fall in love with, or um, they're the one, so I have to make it work. And we forget that we have agency and power and sovereignty, and we don't have to recreate the experiences we had growing up or the relationship we saw from our parents.
When a partner's behavior triggers an intense reaction, how do you reframe that moment as a healing opportunity?
I mean, I wish I could say that every time I get triggered, I reframe it as a healing opportunity. But of course, I'm human. And so I have all of my own mistakes and things that I'm still working on. Um, and one of the books that maybe I can talk about later, Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, which is quite an old book. I think it came out in the 80s. Um, he talks about just connecting to your body and connecting to your breath. And that if you can't do that, then you need to remove yourself from the situation, at least for a little bit of time, until you can come back to yourself and your own awareness. So when you're feeling triggered by a partner, taking a few deep breaths and just staying curious, like, oh, where am I feeling sensation in my body and what are those sensations, can help to take you out of that trigger and into a place of more compassion, more inquiry, and more capacity to meet the moment where it is, or at least to ask for like a pause or a timeout until you can get more resourced.
Interesting, Miss Violet. And how do healthy boundaries for a trauma survivors differ from walls that isolate?
Mm. Yeah, I think sometimes we do need to have walls if it's a very intense relationship that's caused pain with us in the past, and that person has not shown that they are capable of treating us with care and sustaining a connection that's healthy. So sometimes we do have to let a relationship go and find a different partner or find a different situation. That's not usually the case, but sometimes that's necessary. However, I have found that with myself and my clients, the sooner you set boundaries in the beginning of a connection, the more that you are, first of all, honoring yourself and your needs, but second of all, assessing if this person can respect your boundaries. So you don't have to wait till it's been 3 months or 3 years or 3 decades to try to extract yourself from a situation that doesn't feel healthy or supportive. If on the second date, the person shows up late and you normally would just stuff that anger down and pretend that you were fine, instead you say, oh, I feel really bummed that you're here late. I was here early because I was really excited. And I feel like being on time is really important to me. So I just wanted to let you know how I feel. Now the person knows, okay, being on time is important to her, and I have that information. And then you can see in the future, like, do they take that into account? Do they let me know in advance next time, hey, I'm running 5 minutes late, see you soon? Like, relationships are all about informing and educating each other. No one can read our mind. No one knows exactly how we like to be loved or communicated with. But the more that we speak our truth and set boundaries early and often, then A, it's a gift to the other person because they then know how to love us better. And B, it's a gift to ourselves because we get to see how the person responds. If they, for instance, got defensive and said, well, I'm only a few minutes late, get over it, you're so sensitive, then like, oh, well, they might have a hard time taking accountability, or they might feel shame, or something else might be going on for them. And maybe I don't want to put quite as much energy or attention into this connection.
Miss Violet, as helping smart spiritual women and as a podcast host, what are your short term and long term goals?
I mean, my long-term goal is for everyone in the world to be in a healthy, happy, passionate partnership. And even if they don't have that in their love life, to have a deep sense of connection and fulfillment, and to be seen and realize that they matter and that they are important, that every person has unique value to add to this world and to the people around them. So that is my overarching goal. I like to say I'm a cosmic matchmaker because I think about kind of putting people together in like a spiritual term and then bringing that into like real world, real life. My short-term goals are to help my clients develop their essences, develop their unique essence, because I feel like when we're connected to our essence, we're magnetic to everyone around us, and especially to the people that are meant to be a part of our lives. One of my teachers used to say, people come into your life and you don't know if it's for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so we can't always predict what every connection is going to lead to long term, but if we show up authentically and connected to our essence, then we can make the most of the connections that are there, and we can, I feel like, meet our purpose or live our purpose, at least in a relational capacity. And I think a relational capacity of our purpose is really important in addition to our work, in addition to our parenting or other things, because I believe we learn and grow the most through relationships, because that's where a lot of the sticky stuff is. And it's part of our life path journey. And then for my podcast, I haven't been super active on it in the last few years because I have a 7-month-old. And so I was, busy being a mom again. I also have a 5-year-old daughter. But I would hope that my podcast, for those that do listen, even if they're older episodes, it helps remind them the importance of pleasure. And pleasure is not just sexual. Pleasure is about feeling good in our bodies, that we have a right
Yes.
to feel good in our bodies.
Yes, indeed, Miss Violet. Good luck to your goals, and well, looking forward for more and more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, I hope no one wants to be like me. I hope they just want to be more like themselves,
Yeah.
because we all have our own unique thing. But my advice would be, as cheesy as it sounds, to follow your heart. And that includes taking risks. So I left a lot of jobs that were not the right fit for me. And I trusted that I could find something better or create something better for myself as an entrepreneur. And not a day goes by where I don't feel nervous, where I don't feel like I have to put a little extra focus on putting myself out there, either showing up energized for a client or creating a new program or posting something a little bit uncomfortable on social media. But it's worth it because then I get to feel the impact that I make in the world. I get to connect with incredible women all over the world. And so follow your heart and take the risks that come along with that.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Miss Violet, for your advice. And can you recommend a book that influenced your journey?
I'm going to recommend a few if that's okay. So I mentioned earlier Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine is my absolute favorite book for trauma. It's simple methodology and it is the foundation of somatic experiencing. I think it's pretty hard to heal from trauma without doing that. The other book that I wanted to share, I actually have a hard copy of with sticky tabs still. It's called Getting Real by Susan Campbell. And it's all about, or sorry, it's called Saying What's Real. She also has Getting Real. Both of these are really good. And it's all about authentic communication and showing up as your true self and risking rejection, but in the process, finding people who really are a good fit for you instead of pretending to be something that you think someone else wants, which I did a long time when I was dating, and it never really got me anywhere. And then there's a lot of other books. For instance, Sherry Winston has a book called Women's Anatomy of Arousal, and it's all about female anatomy and pleasure. And it's kind of mind-boggling because most women get taught just about our monthly, menstrual cycle, and they don't get taught about the amazingness that their body is and all that it can experience. So those are my top books that I would recommend.
Thank you for your recommendation, Miss Violet. Thank you so much. How do partners co-create moments of felt safety to counteract past trauma?
Mm. Yeah, that's where we come into co-regulation. So two things to this. One thing is that if one partner shows up balanced and grounded and connected to themselves in a healthy way, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats. So that's going to help everyone feel more safe when you show up as a safe presence. But in relationship, because of our mirror neurons and we're always kind of ping-ponging back and forth off of each other's energetic state, even if one person shows up impeccably all the time and the other partner is not very developed or attuned or aware and has a lot of, let's say, volatility or things they haven't looked at from the past, it's going to be hard to create these shared moments of safety because the person who's more grounded and aware will be frequently holding space for the person who hasn't yet kind of come to that place within themselves. So I think it's important for partners to do work on their own, like women doing women's work and men doing men's work. But it's also important for people, and whether you're in a heterosexual relationship or not, like people who are in partnership to do work together as a couple or as a unit. And the work doesn't have to be couples therapy. It doesn't have to be hard work, or it doesn't have to just be mental. It can be as simple as if you and I were sitting across from each other and you put your hand on my heart and I put my hand on your heart and we just took a few breaths together, we would regulate our nervous systems. They've done studies that within, I think it's 4 minutes of eye gazing, your heart rates sync up. So even if one person's heart rate is higher and one person's is lower, after 4 minutes of eye gazing without any talking or any touch, your heart rates stabilize and they find the same, beats per minute.
How does healing one person's trauma transform family or relationship legacies?
I love that question.
Thank you.
I love that question because I think, on the foundational level, it is about romantic partnership, but on a bigger level, it's about societal change and changing a lineage and changing our legacies. And that happens because when one person heals their trauma, it creates possibility for future and past generations. So when one person heals, let's say, sexual abuse that they've experienced, and they're willing to speak about it, or they're willing to kind of clear that out of their nervous system, then they're going to be more attuned and present and not accidentally choose a partner who's going to repeat that same thing with their children, or they're not going to imprint their children with the same kind of wiring to be worried about sexual abuse or to be it's hard to describe. I'm not finding the right language, but it creates possibilities and it creates more awareness and less baggage, and that translates to our children. But I believe it also translates backward, and that if there really is no time or space and everything is happening all at once from a quantum physics perspective, then as I heal, it unlocks energy for myself and for my ancestors, and it lightens the load on the whole system if you think about a family line as a system. And because of all of our families overlap through marriage and through, unfortunately, war and other things where we have intense experiences together, the more that each person heals, it really does affect, I believe, the whole global family.
Very well said again, Miss Violet. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season too. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby pants law 101 and health of love letters in third season, and my booby 101 and music 101 and its fourth season too. Science 101 and sex 101 and its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Violet, what's the core truth about love that guides someone from trauma toward wholeness?
That healing is not only possible, it's transformational, and your past does not have to define your future. We are all worthy of healthy, lasting love.
Miss Violet Lange, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, as well as your podcast itself?
Of course. Yeah. If someone feels like they resonate with something I've shared, you can go to my website, which Daniel showed earlier. It's violetlang.com. You can also send me an email. It's just violet@violetlang.com. And I'm happy to reply and see how I can help you in any way or suggest some resources. And my podcast is called Violet Lang's Pleasure Path.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Violet Lange because if you support her, more and more and more empowering episode of the podcast itself, more and more and more empowering coaching about love to come. So, Miss Violet, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for the great work that you're doing across so many different areas of importance in people's lives.
Yes, indeed. And more to come, people. See you soon.